Deer everywhere. Well, hello everybody. I wanted to do a quick follow-up video from Sundays. I'm standing on a walnut. Where we talked about putting our fence in. Our video went pretty long last time, so I didn't want to include it in that video. So in this video, we'll talk about living fence. We're actually using pollarding / coppicing to help out with our fence posts. So those of you unfamiliar with our fence endeavors here at Red Tool House, we're trying to put pig pasture throughout our Appalachian hardwood forest to be able to rotate them through, incorporate silvopasture. I don't like screwing directly to trees or attaching wire directly to trees. The reason why is you get this. I don't know if you can see that, but this is a really nice, pretty walnut tree that has barbed wire stuck right in the dead center of it. And this was pre-us, so this was pre-20 years. So it's one of those things that if this barbed wire would have been flush with the walnut and I had missed it, then just being out here in the middle of the woods, I thought, hey, if it's time to mill some walnut, I may have milled this and obviously torn up a blade or two getting through it. So I don't like doing that. What we've done is we attach these boards to the tree. Now again, I didn't mind sticking holes in this walnut since it already had holes in it. Yeah, the rain's coming. So I attach this board to it to be able to keep the insulator from getting swallowed up by the tree as it grows and allow me to somewhat remove it. I'm not sure, 10 years down the road if I'm going to be able to back those screws out. Probably not. But this at least keeps the tree from swallowing up the insulator and at some point the wire if I don't mess with it. So as an example, I've got this spot where I wanted to start my whole line of fence going all the way down that you saw us do on Sunday, but just couldn't bring myself to attaching to this beautiful hickory. Just a massive, massive mockernut hickory. Produces tons of mast. Really good producer. Biggest tree I have in this whole area. Man, I just can't put metal in that. So I set a post right beside it, and that's where we started. So further on down the line here, I've got a shagbark hickory. You can see that tall one there that's got a bit of a lean to it. Same thing, I did not want to put a hole in it. But right beside it is what I want to point out. So when we were doing this fence, I cut off this red maple. It's a little red maple about 6-inch diameter. I cut it off about 3 feet from the ground. And technically, I believe this would be called pollarding. If I was cutting it off flush, then that would be a coppice. But the reason for doing this is instead of just cutting it down and putting a post, of course, I save on a post. And this makes a great tensioner. This can handle tension. You can kind of see my fence makes an angle here to make the turn in the road. So there's tension going this way, and if it was a post, then of course it would have to resist that tension. This tree is going to resist it much more than any post I could drive in the ground. Hopefully, because I pollarded this tree, it will actually continue to grow. It'll sprout. Next year we should see new maple sprouts coming up around, maybe even at the base of the trunk, and it should start to grow. Now there is a spot where I took a big chunk out accidentally a couple years ago where I hit it with a dozer blade. It did scar over pretty well, and the canopy was pretty healthy. So this may grow back and produce a living fence post. So I still went ahead and attached my board to it, so again, it wouldn't dig into the trunk, or the trunk would try to grow around it at some point if this tree decides to survive. Again, with this big chunk, it may not. But over time, hopefully, if this tree would survive the next 5 or 10 years, then this will be a solid fence post. I will have to come back and trim some of the new shoots so they don't ground out my fence, of course. But this could be a great, solid, living fence post for a long time. Last way longer than some of the posts I'm putting in the ground, especially if I was putting wood posts in. So another tree we attached to yesterday was this little poplar. And I wanted to pollard it pretty low as well because A, it's got poison ivy growing up it, and B, its top's kind of died out anyway. We want to open this up for more light. I just didn't get a chance to, so we're going to go ahead and put a quick topping on it. and managed to do that without breaking my line. Go figure. Now that little poplar may sprout. That's one thing I've noticed about poplar. It's pretty resilient. The top was dying out on that, so it may have gotten choked out with all the competition, or it may have gotten sick. But yeah, we'll see. If it starts to sprout, great. If it rots and dies, then of course, being poplar, that's going to turn punky in about 2 years, maybe sooner. So one tree I chose not to do that same treatment to pollard it is this Virginia pine. So you can see my line coming down the hill here, going on down the edge of the tree line. Actually attaches to that little hickory. But I've never had any luck trying to pollard or top a pine tree unless it's really young and you're really high on the top. I don't know if it's just because it's the Virginia pine or any pine in general. If I were to try to cut that thing off 3 or 4 feet above the ground, it would just die. So that's not what we're looking to do. That pine really doesn't provide much shade. In fact, it leans out over my road pretty well. But so I just left it be. Any attempt to top it would cause it to die. So it's going to be a living fence post, hopefully as long as the tree stays alive. So as we run our wire through the forest, these are the type of things we're trying to do to maximize our fence posts, obviously, to save as much money as possible, but not to complicate things by making crazy zigzags. So there's times that I choose to attach to trees, sometimes I don't. But pollarding or coppicing those trees, obviously you couldn't coppice and still use it as a post, but pollarding those trees really allow me to attach it, and I won't mistake it on down the road as a potential mill tree. And that's really, I guess, what it comes down to. If I would choose to attach fence wire to this clump of poplar behind me for some reason, if I was going to have pasture over here, and I just stuck the wire to it, but at some point moved it, then 10 years down the road, maybe I forget that I had wire in that and go to cut it on the mill and then end up having issues there with damage in the mill. So by pollarding those, if I'd cut all those off, A, I could go ahead and mill them, but B, I could use the base for live fence posts, and I wouldn't come back and mistake it some other point as potential firewood or potential sawmill lumber, because it's just going to take forever for that to grow back, and it's going to be an odd cluster. So I can know, hey, that's a pollarded tree. That means I probably did that for a specific reason. Well, starting to rain. Just wanted to share that with you all. Didn't want to include it in Sunday's video because it would make it longer than it already was. All right, take care, everybody.